On June 24th, Brian Johnson, better known as Liver King, was arrested after making numerous threats against alleged comedian Joe Rogan and then traveling to Austin, Texas to attempt to fight him. This event was the culmination of a multi-day-long social media posting spree that made many viewers question Brian's sanity. Moreover, it was the latest in a series of social media controversies that have plagued the infamous internet celebrity since he first achieved social media stardom several years ago. With this latest scandal being the most concerning one to date, I thought it would be worth examining to potentially see where this story is going next. Part 1. Setting the stage. From what I can tell from my research, there doesn't seem to be a specific moment or social media post that serves as the inciting incident for Brian's downward spiral. However, there is an Instagram post from June 19th that does appear to foreshadow what was about to come. In this video, Brian has what appears to be a fresh wound on his nose and eyebrow region, and there are twigs stuck in his hair. During the video, Brian doesn't mention Joe Rogan as he later would. That said, he does reference the movie and how it affected the public perception of his family.
Anywhere that they go, anyone who's seen the movie, they receive my family with a lesser version of what their truth actually is, and they don't deserve that.
As we get deeper into these events, the issue of untold Liver King will become a common theme, and I think it may have served as the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. But the first example of Liver King calling out Joe Rogan that I can find was uploaded to Instagram on June 21st. The call out came during a video where Brian was pacing around his house like a caged animal and rambling about how he merges the physical world with the virtual world by playing Mario Kart with his family. In the midst of this rant, he abruptly switches gears to say that he is picking a fight with Joe Rogan because it matters to him.
I'm picking a fight with him because it matters to me. It matters to me.
Then he makes comments about a $1 million bet before rambling almost incoherently about his family. Then he circles back to the $1 million and how the loser will have to donate the money to a charity that is good and true.
They donate that to a charity. It's good and true.
This frequent changing of topics is something I want you to take note of because it feels indicative of whatever has been going through Brian's mind as of late.
No, shame on you, bro. Shame on you. I'm going to make you pay. I am going to actually make you pay. And what you pay will be donated to good and true.
There are a lot of criticisms that you can levy against Brian Johnson, but if there is something positive you used to be able to say about him, it was that he was very good about staying on message. However manufactured the Liver King persona may have been, he was actually able to articulate himself in a coherent and concise manner. In the videos that he has made in the last several weeks, his mind appears scattered and he's unable to maintain one train of thought for more than about a minute. At the same time, he seems to have become obsessed with a number of terms and phrases like good and true.
And the outcome is good and true.
Expression of action, good and true. Framework, good and true.
Principles that are stronger than time.
Shit, that's pretty strong. Maybe stronger than time. What's stronger than time? Principles. That's stronger than time.
Or fist bump, pound, lock it down.
Because at the end it's fist bump, pound, lock it down.
Which he repeats like mantras, often multiple times in a single video. A good example of this scattered thought process comes in the video where he's attempting to weigh himself on camera. He starts the video by talking about how he shits on the ground and uses an enema bucket.
I lay here on the ground, that's my enema bucket. That's my enema bucket right there.
After this, he attempts to record himself standing on a scale that reads 192. Then he switches to talking about his different Liver King suits and how he'll wear the white one when he kicks Joe Rogan's ass. As the video progresses, he wanders around the house and music starts to play. Though it's unclear to me if this music was edited into the video or if it's blasting in the background from his disconcerting number of JBL speakers. He then gets stuck in a bit of a loop talking about 192 and good and true before circling back to Joe Rogan. He says if Joe doesn't want to fight, he can release him and Brian will donate $1 million to a charity of his choosing.
Otherwise it's bloody fucking murder, bro. Bloody murder. Barbarian bones. 192. I asked my wife, I go, hey, do we have a scale?
After this, he switches back to rambling about the scale before going into detail about how he has to give himself enemas because his pipes don't work.
I got these impactions right now. That's my gift.
Finally, he ends the video by saying that he's coming for Joe Rogan and their families can meet each other.
Coming for you, Joe. I hope my family gets to meet yours.
Now, I don't know if this was the video that would lead to the charges being brought against Brian Johnson. Realistically, it was probably the video where he said he was picking a fight with Joe while holding 2 gold-plated guns and wearing a wolf's head as a hat. Either way, I think this video probably put Brian's intentions onto Joe's radar, because it was pretty unhinged. But things would only get more unhinged from here. Over basically the next 2 days, Brian would post frequently through Instagram videos and Reels, some of which are no longer available on his profile. These videos range in length from less than 30 seconds to upwards of 18 minutes, with the longer ones being comprised largely of repetitive stream-of-consciousness diatribes. So I'm not going to be showing much of those videos. Truthfully, they're mostly just Brian repeating himself over and over again about the same few points, like the fact that he's picking a fight with Joe Rogan to protect or defend his family, somehow.
Primarily because I'm picking a fight with this guy, JR.
Or Brian going off on excursions into the hinterlands of his mind to ramble about his 4 swords, or how the 12 ancestral tenets are principles which are stronger than time.
Principles that matter, stronger than time.
And represented by the demarcations on a clock face. This also somehow relates to what Brian calls king time, spelled K-Y-N-G-T-Y-M-E, which is apparently God's time.
King time, divine time, his time. When you bridge the gap, the delta to perfect, you all know how that feels. That's awesome. That's God's time. That's king time. KYNGTYME.com. King time. King time. King time.
Alongside Fist Pump Pound Lock It Down, King Time has replaced Liver King Out as Brian's way of ending videos because, according to him, the name never mattered, only the message.
The message matters, not the name. Liver King. Not Liver King. King time.
I know I just hit you with a lot there, so I'm going to dial it back a bit and focus on a few running themes present in a large number of these erratic videos, if not the majority of them. One of the aspects of this seeming descent into madness that I found the most telling is that Brian doesn't really explain why he's calling Joe out, or picking a fight with him. If you're familiar with this story, you can infer that it's because Joe was one of Brian's earliest and harshest critics. But Brian kind of avoids the subject. Instead, Johnson acts almost as if he's being compelled to do this, like he is being drawn inexorably towards Austin to fight Joe unless Rogan invites him on the podcast.
I want to fight you, real tension, but I want to unite with you too, and you can release me of the actual physical fight.
To the extent that he does try to justify his need to fight Joe, it's pretty hard to understand. It has something to do with having principles and being a man and protecting his family.
Because I have something actually to fight for. Actually, that's my family. I have a principle to fight for. Right now, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight for my family, for what's right, and I'm not going to stop.
He doesn't clearly explain what Joe did, though, so it ends up coming across like Anthony Smith saying Johnny Walker was attacking his family. On the other hand, Brian does seem to draw a distinction between Joe and some of his other enemies, like the slimeballs and scumbags who made the Untold documentary.
The people that try to be slimy and greedy, like Joe Snurlman, who attempted to direct The Untold Truth. Vigorous sleazeball, and Joe Snurlman, who tried to attempt to direct a lie that they called The Untold Truth about a man that knows the truth.
Or the assorted YouTubers who have commented on him, like Derek from More Plates, More Dates.
The More Plates, More Dates fake guy, that guy. Derek Betterman, soon to be. That's what he's going to be. Never a barbarian until he changes to become a better man. Destruction, good and true, slimy, smells like shit. It is shit, tastes like shit. Vigorous. I don't even know his last name.
As an aside, when Brian talks about the Untold documentary, he has the tendency to go off on these rants about the director, Joe Perlman, who he refers to as Joe Snurlman, and his boss, Sheldon.
I'll just say who they are. Joe fucking Snurlman, you'll pay. Your boss, Sheldon, the other fake Jew, he's gonna pay.
He repeatedly refers to them as fake Jews, and says that they wear the hat but don't follow the principles.
The fake Jews like Sheldon who wear the hat but don't actually live the principles of being Jewish. You're actually the fake ones. If you're proud to be Jewish, raise your fucking hand, and then I'm not actually Jewish.
This is in contrast to his high priest, Joe Cohen, who Brian says is proud of his Jewish heritage. I only bring this up because out of all the bizarre things Brian did during this whole debacle, this is one that feels the most out of character for him. That said, Brian does draw some kind of distinction between the scumbags and Joe Rogan, who he says is mostly good and true.
I'm not going to force Joe Rogan to pay, but we are going to force a response from him. He's good and true. He deserves respect.
On multiple occasions, he more or less says that he doesn't actually want to fight Joe, and he wouldn't want to hurt another man with a family.
I don't want to do that. Why would I want to kill you? And you have a family. I wouldn't want to take you away from your family.
Yet at the same time, he also made comments about how he was willing to die for his family.
You've never come across something like this. Willing to die.
Said that he was hoping Joe would choke him out and break all of his limbs.
I hope you choke me out. And if you don't choke me out, these other limbs will be interesting.
On more than one occasion, he was also brandishing weapons. In one video, he said he had a present for Joe, which was a box with Rogan's logo on it. When he quickly opened the box to show the viewer the contents, a gun was visible inside. This dichotomy led to a very strange situation where Brian was frequently saying that he was coming to Austin to fight Joe, unless Joe would release him from what he dubbed as the nonsense.
But I hope you actually release me of all this, because tomorrow's family day. It's Sunday. Still here. I'm not going to go to sleep until my people show up, because we're going to Austin today. Unless I get an invitation, Joe Rogan can release me. Release me from all the fucking nonsense. I haven't slept. I sound crazy. I look crazy. I know.
When I first watched some of these events unfold, the question I asked myself was, how much of this was a publicity stunt and how much of it was some kind of legitimate breakdown? As I've been working on this video, that question has changed. Now the question is, when did this shift from being a stunt, if it ever was one, to being a legitimate mental episode? My best guess is that the tipping point came sometime in the early morning hours of June 22nd, because that is when Brian put out some of the more incomprehensible and alarming of all the videos. In one of these videos, which is over 7 minutes long, Brian wanders around his kitchen and living room area, alternating between talking about Joe Rogan, cuddling with his dogs, and talking to his son Rad, who is lingering out of frame. During this video, Brian seemed to be in a manic or agitated state and made mention of not sleeping. He blamed the insomnia on being in fight mode.
When do you go to sleep? When you're tired. Maybe I'll sleep when I'm tired. Sleep when I'm tired. Yeah, look, I'm not really tired because I'm in fight mode. I actually am in fight mode.
Even more concerningly, he essentially pleaded with Joe Rogan to release him from this by inviting him on the podcast, so Brian could get some rest.
Joe Rogan, bro, just fucking invite me on. Release me of all these other things, man. And then basically what I'm saying at the end is like, man, just release me. Just release me of the actual fight. If I could get a formal invitation, I could rest for a little while. Do I get a rest? But I'm in fight mode, and you know why? Release me of it.
Obviously, this didn't happen, so Brian stayed awake and made more videos, like the one where he crawled around the room on his hands and knees at 3 a.m. and tried to film a cockroach. More interesting to me is that in the middle of this video, he switched gears to go on another rant about principles and the clock face and king time. It's incomprehensible even by the standard of this entire episode.
Maybe you call them like tenants around the clock. Boom. There's 12 of them. And then maybe you fight for those principles. Maybe you don't sleep because those principles mean something. Your family's important to you. And maybe you follow through with everything that you fucking said because maybe you're not a liar king. Maybe you're actually a real king. Oh shit, it's actually happening.
Presumably after this video is when he would record the video officially calling out Joe Rogan while wielding 2 guns and wearing a dead animal on his head. But more interesting to me is how in the middle of this video, he also switched back to talking about how the movie misrepresented his family and the director is a scumbag. This train of thought apparently carried over into yet another video where he talked mostly about the Untold documentary.
How come? What do you mean about the movie? Because, well, that's not who you really are. We actually really know you, and everyone's kind of left anemic knowing we can't have closure. There's no closure because this doesn't make sense. This doesn't compute. How come this was made, but we actually know the truth? How come? Disappointment. Oh.
This is the video where the sleep deprivation or whatever else Brian was experiencing becomes really apparent. He had a hard time staying on topic and drifted into these extended rants where he frequently paused and closed his eyes as if to remember something. Then he would divulge some incomprehensible rant or string of words in a mantra-like fashion.
Loyalty, love, lock it down, protect, support, grow this fire from the inside, and then from the outside, to be received with a reputation of less than what's been earned, really rightfully earned. That's ancestral honor. Ancestral honor is about reputation.
I can speak from personal experience about the negative effects of sleep deprivation. There have been periods in my life where I have gone several days without sleeping and or gotten a handful of hours of sleep in the span of a week or so. It can be overstated what kind of toll that takes on you mentally and physically. When you're running on little or no sleep for an extended period of time, it becomes difficult just to form thoughts, yet at the same time your mind will be racing, especially if you're using something like caffeine to compensate for the fatigue, or in Liver King's case, doing coffee enemas. You'll struggle to concentrate and communicate, let alone do so concisely. If you're awake long enough, you'll just straight up start hallucinating, and that doesn't even take very long, a couple of days at most. I don't know how long Brian was awake for at this point, but he has mentioned in the past that he struggles with insomnia and often doesn't get enough sleep. He's even mentioned needing to use a BiPAP machine to breathe, which means his sleep has to be horribly interrupted in general.
Even use a BiPAP device, not even a CPAP. CPAP wasn't strong enough for the king. BiPAP, I hadn't been sleeping right.
So it's possible that he could have been going a few days without sleep, and that would honestly go a long way to explaining his behavior during this time frame. Over the next few days, Brian would make multiple new videos, mainly reiterating points he discussed in previous videos. Nevertheless, a few comments do stand out. In particular, Brian posted 2 videos where he made it clear that he wasn't going to go to Joe Rogan's house.
Life's a party. We're not going to go to some man's place, his perimeter, and disrespect anything.
Rather, they would find a public place where they could have the fight and their families could watch.
And we're just going to find a shared location that makes sense, that's in public, and life's a party, and if any harm or destruction is done in the process, then the whole thing kind of comes unraveled.
Curiously, he sort of framed this as being his wife's doing and said that she was protecting Joe.
And she's protecting you because she knows what I'm capable of.
I'm a little skeptical. I have a hunch that somebody from his team probably told him that the comments he was making about Joe could, let's be honest here, rightfully be interpreted as threats. I say this because Brian admitted that some of his previous videos had been deleted by a team member because they were a bad look, but Brian had them reinstated.
And then someone on my team, Adam, made another really bad decision, incongruent with the truth, concerned to contract in scarcity, to protect like that, not okay. Because I said the truth, I meant the truth. And now I'm fighting with someone on my team to communicate, to restore the truth.
Personally, I feel that Brian believed that by saying he wasn't coming to Joe's house, he might be able to circumvent any accusations of threats or stalking. But again, it's just a hunch. I could be wrong, and the best evidence for that would be that Brian didn't really stop making videos about Joe over the next few days. Part 2. The Road Trip. Unlike the previous day, Brian didn't actually upload that many videos on the day of the drive to Austin. That said, we did get some of the more infamous videos from this entire episode. The first video of the day started off with Brian saying that you can't buy this stuff, in reference to the aforementioned box with Joe Rogan's face on it.
Their serial numbers, non-replicatable, not reproducible kind of stuff.
And at this point, I think I have to address the elephant in the room because things have escalated a bit. You may have noticed that in some of the previously mentioned videos, the inside of Brian's mouth is blue. It's blue in this video as well, but he also has a noticeable blue smudge on his forehead that persists through multiple videos. Some people have suggested it could be from taking methylene blue, which is a compound that is used as a dye and does have some legitimate medical uses. This does seem like something Brian would take. I mean, the guy takes a watered-down mixture of scorpion venom, bee venom, and poison ivy, so taking methylene blue for some nebulous health reason doesn't seem far-fetched. He has also more or less confirmed that he takes methylene blue through a post on Instagram, but I'm not sure what benefit it would confer besides making him look even crazier than usual. At any rate, the video from the morning of the 23rd is largely a restating of many of his previous videos, with the exception of a few key differences. The main difference came when Brian opened the crate intended as a present for Joe Rogan and a gun was visible among the contents. If any of the previous videos didn't lead to Joe contacting the police, then this was probably the one that did. It's one thing to make content saying you want to fight Joe Rogan, even if you're holding weapons while you do so. It's another thing entirely to say that you're actually coming to fight Joe and indicate that you're bringing a gun. Brian would later say that this gun was from one of the John Wick movies and it was intended as a legitimate gift for someone who worked at the Mothership Comedy Club.
Something inside that box was actually a present back for you and your Mothership colleagues for having my wife and me in Mothership.
On the other hand, Johnson's reaction to showing the gun has a different implication in my opinion.
There comes bearing a, see if I can, you want to see just a little, I might watch that. I wish, if I can live stream, that's what we'll do from now on.
This is also another notable aspect of the video. Brian seemed really manic and scatterbrained. He constantly jumped between topics as if he could barely contain himself.
Gotta go. Okay, this is what I'm coming to. My beautiful queen. Say hi, my beautiful queen. Say hi. Just say hi. Oh, that's all you get until you're... Oh, God, she wants one more time. Say hi. Hi. Yeah, okay. Joe, what's your wife's name? My wife's name is Bojana. She's from Poland. I'm Polish. Those are my roots. We're Polish. This Polish family. Texas proud. Eagle strong, bicep torn off. Oh, shit, I gotta go.
At one point, he went on a nonsensical rant about Netflix and how he intended to boycott them on the 4th of July, but he wouldn't unsubscribe because he still liked their programming. It's fucking bizarre.
The 4th of July, you guys know what happens on the 4th? That's when my grandma was born. Francis Fields, we honor you. Freedom. Freedom to exercise a fucking right to boycott Netflix. Fuck you for allowing anyone to do destruction bad. I still won't unsubscribe to you because I like the Outer Banks. My boys like to watch it.
After this, I think, we got the infamous clip where Brian crawled towards the camera on all fours to challenge Joe Rogan. As absurd and comedic as this video was at the start, it got far more concerning the longer Brian spoke. After saying that they don't have to make videos anymore, Brian made a very ominous statement to Joe.
And you don't have to hold a camera. You can hold the hand of somebody that you love, because what happens next to you, you're going to need to remember that feeling. You're going to need something more than what you did to give you something to fight for, because I have my family to fight for.
A bit later, he said that Joe has never faced someone like him, someone who is ready to die.
But you've never come across something like this, willing to die.
Then said that he hoped Joe would choke him out and that he'd need to break all of Johnson's limbs to get him to quit.
Hoping that you'll choke me out, I pray to God, because that's a dream come true. It feels good. And then the limbs, I'm fighting for my family. So limb. Go ahead.
Although these statements might not technically be considered threats, they were still deeply concerning for what they said about Brian's mental state. And I'm sure they would have raised alarm bells for anyone associated with Joe Rogan, especially since Brian was making good on his promise to come to Austin. As I said earlier, there isn't much footage from the actual trip, but there is one video that I found kind of funny. As they stopped at a gas station to pick up some supplies, Brian debated double-fisting energy drinks because he was in fight mode, and then gave a glowing endorsement of Onnit products.
What I really like is Onnit supplements. I take that. You should see it. It's on my shelf of mood modulators.
By nightfall, Brian and his crew, which included his entire family, would eventually make it to Austin, and he would record a few more videos from inside the hotel suite. To be honest, these videos are not particularly interesting. At this point, it really seems like Brian was running on fumes. He rambled and drifted between topics, often pausing and closing his eyes as if he was struggling just to stay awake.
Why don't you just go to sleep? Maybe you know his name. It's Jim Riggs.
It's essentially one droning conversation chopped up into three 3-minute videos, where Brian reiterated points he already made a few dozen times by now. He repeated talking points he made earlier in this same recording, something even he appeared to realize.
Kind of saying the same thing. Kind of saying the same thing in principle.
The most unusual video Brian posted during the road trip saga was probably the Jim Riggs video. It's a bit hard to explain what happened in the video, honestly. Brian said that he wants to introduce Joe to Jim Riggs, then pan the camera over to some kind of scarf or keffiyeh sitting on a table.
Hey, Joe Rogan, I want to introduce you to Jim Riggs. Jim Riggs.
Then he proceeded to talk about Jim Riggs, who was evidently a man who worked for Brian for a period of time and later died.
Jim, I honor you. Did you guys know that I was sending Jim Riggs? He died.
It's an almost surreal moment as we see Brian get choked up over his friend who passed away and the fact that he couldn't save his life.
And I don't know if some of you know that when he was dying, I'm like, oh, how do I save your life, Jim? How do I save your life? I just got to know you. I just got to know you. You're like my best friend now. How can I save your life?
But he managed to bring it back around to Joe Rogan by saying that he tried to cheer Jim up by bringing him to the mothership to watch Joe's comedy.
You know what I did? I said, hey, let's go to Joe Rogan Comedy. Let's send you there. Let's get you to really laugh. You know how good it feels when you laugh?
Then he said that men like Jim Riggs, that family and principles are what he's fighting for.
That's what I'm fighting for.
To me, this is one of the stranger videos of this whole saga. I feel like Brian is in character, whatever that character may be, at essentially all times, at least when the camera is on. This felt like a moment where Brian let his guard down and a bit of his true emotions slipped out.
I love you, brother.
Part 3. The Arrest. Now, I could just jump into talking about Brian getting arrested, and it probably wouldn't change a lot in terms of the broader narrative of events that we watch play out. With that in mind, there are some interesting insights to be gathered from the videos he made leading up to the arrest itself. For instance, in the video where he's giving himself a coffee enema in the shower, he stated that the police were coming. However, he seemed a bit confused as to why.
Oh, the police are coming, or something's happening, somebody's overreacting.
He said he didn't threaten to kill anybody.
I'm not threatening to kill anybody. Did somebody say that I was going to kill somebody?
Even though he kind of did.
I would tear you apart, Joe Rogan. You sleep whenever you're, tired.
Guess what? You're dead, bitch. You're dead.
He added that he was challenging Joe Rogan as a man, but he didn't want to kill him because he didn't want to take him away from his family. And he didn't want to be perceived as a threat.
I wouldn't want that to happen, so I hope that none of this is perceived as a threat.
Why he thought that wasn't considered a threat is kind of beyond me. His tone changed a bit later in the video when he asked if he had said anything illegal, even though he didn't think he had.
I've done anything illegal? Pretty certain I haven't.
But he also said that someone should just tell Joe Rogan to invite him on the podcast. That way they could have many fights that week, the first of which being a fight of the minds.
But if I have, somebody should tell Joe Rogan, just invite me on the podcast. We can have mini fights this week. We can start the first one with our minds.
Perhaps most importantly, Brian stated that he had been awake for about 40 hours. This was in addition to mentioning having already done about 4 coffee enemas on top of drinking coffee.
I'm here at the Four Seasons in Austin. I'm in the shower. I'm on my 4th enema. I didn't sleep the day before. I was up for about, 40 hours or so.
It only adds to my theory that Brian was probably suffering from some kind of sleep deprivation, especially if the 40 hours without sleep was part of a longer pattern of inadequate sleep. This theory also goes a long way to explaining Brian's behavior in the videos leading up to his arrest. He honestly did not seem to understand the reality of what was happening during this period. Despite being told that the police were waiting downstairs,
I'm not recording while dealing with the cops outside.
God damn, this took a while.
he took time to meander around the suite, talk about how he was going to light his morning fire, and then request that his team edit his anthem Never Change into the video. He was generally more concerned with making sure that his COO, Justin Fitzpatrick, kept recording him than the fact that he was going to be arrested.
You should record anything and everything. Just record this right now. We're gonna record everything. There you go. And you're gonna keep recording, okay? Don't stop recording with the police and all that.
At one point, Fitzpatrick had to tell Brian that he shouldn't be carrying his Leatherman around when the cops arrested him, and Brian seemed confused as to why that would be a problem. When the cops actually came into the hotel suite, Brian acted kind of standoffish with them. He asked if he could have 12 minutes, and when they said they had already given him 20, he asked if he could have 12, 2, or 0 minutes.
Can I have 12 or is it 2?
It has been 20 minutes.
So right now, is it 12, 2, or 0?
It would be 0.
The cops replied that the answer was 0, which led Brian into a series of attempts to bargain with the police for more time. He argued that the cops, being real men and women, should be able to understand what it would feel like for a mom or a dad to be in his position with his family there. Liver Queen attempted to interject, but Brian took control of the conversation to say that the cops had already given him this much time because they knew what was actually right. But then, he said something I think helps to understand his motivation. Brian goes from saying that they, his family presumably, were expecting something else.
Because we were expecting maybe something else.
And then switches to saying that this was his motivation for coming to Austin.
So guess what? That's why I'm doing all of this?
Because the movie and everybody suggested that this character, presumably Liver King, was a different character.
Because the movie and everybody suggested this character is this other character.
And that affected the way he was received. Then he follows it up with some of his word salad about principles that matter and being an actual man and husband to his queen. After which he suggests that even though he would supplicate to the cops and let them do whatever they want, he could still handle both of them.
I would do that too, but I could handle both of you guys.
I'm not going to say that this is the smoking gun to understanding Brian's mindset or anything, but I do think it's as close as he gets to laying out his motivation in a concise and sort of coherent way. If I read between the lines a bit, I think he saw going on the Joe Rogan Experience as his best shot of being able to correct the negative way he has been perceived by the public.
Yeah, brother.
And maybe a small groundswell will say that he really is not a bad guy. He's an okay guy. He might have some interesting things that you might want to parse out and go deep with to see if he's really full of shit, because that's what he's asking. Can Liver King go on your podcast and it'd be called Joe Rogan tries to see if he's full of shit about anything? Anything. Absolutely anything.
Brian's initial attempts to get more time from the cops failed, so he changed tactics and essentially pleaded with them to have 12 exact minutes so he could take a shit.
So can I have 12 minutes to just finish my actual shit? I did 4 coffee enemas this morning.
On the verge of tears, he explained that he'd done 4 coffee enemas so far that day because his intestines don't work like theirs, which seemed to be enough to get the officers to grant him some extra time.
That's what so that man to a man, can I have 12 exact minutes? We set our timer and I'll deliver on my word. Thank you.
But the weirdness didn't stop there. The post-shit video is equally as weird, and Brian spent several minutes rambling about a number of different topics and uttering various catchphrases and buzzwords we've heard so far. But I'll come back around to some of that later. What I find interesting is how Brian and his wife genuinely don't seem to understand the gravity of what was actually happening when Brian was finally about to be arrested by the police. They were gathering up his medication, and Brian seemed legitimately confused by the fact that they wouldn't allow him to take a file with him into the cop car. This was despite his explanation that it was for his hands, whatever that means.
My hands are, it's my hands.
They won't let you keep that?
Well, just in the car though?
No.
Okay.
And if you're just listening to this and thinking it was a nail file or something, No, it's like an actual file you'd use for metalwork.
Okay, let's go.
Brian also seemed surprised that they were going to handcuff him, and Liver Queen was confused by the fact that they wouldn't let her come with him.
Come here,
I'm
guys.
having like. That's also not really possible. That's not how.
In the moments before he was about to be walked out of the building, he shared a hug and a prayer with his family, but it quickly devolved into a gumbo of gibberish phrases and terminology that made no sense given the context.
To discern what matters, nothing that doesn't. To discern what matters, guys. To be profitable with time. Bridge the gap, the delta to perfect, that's a good life. King time, that's walking into light, that's God's time.
From here, we followed Liver Queen and Justin as they left the hotel and caught up with Brian as he was being loaded into the back seat of the cop car. Brian's arrest would make headlines on basically every website even tangentially related to the sphere of fitness, podcasters, or mixed martial arts. According to court documents, he was charged with making terroristic threats, a Class D misdemeanor for which Johnson could face up to 180 days in jail and up to a $2,000 fine. The outcome of the case is still pending as of writing. According to a statement given to MMAfighting.com, the police were notified of Brian's threats at approximately 9:30 a.m. on June 24th. The Austin Police Department would then contact Joe Rogan, who stated he had never had any interaction with Brian, but considered the post to be threatening. Based on this evidence, they obtained a warrant for Johnson's arrest, and he was taken into custody without incident later that day. Also, I think it's worth mentioning that the application for the warrant specifically cited a few of the videos I highlighted earlier, such as the one where he was holding the 2 gold-plated guns, the box video, and the video Brian shot outside of the Four Seasons. The following day, Brian would be released on a $20,000 bond, with the added stipulations that he must have no contact with and remain 200 yards away from Joe Rogan and his family. Additionally, he would not be allowed to possess firearms, would be required to wear an ankle monitor, and be under mental health supervision, as well as undergo a mental health evaluation within 1 week of release. Brian would end up confirming some of these details after his release when he said that he had been given the gift of a restraining order.
And I've been given the gift of a restraining order just recently. 200 yards restrain myself I must do.
In multiple videos posted after his release, you can also clearly see that he's wearing an ancestral ankle monitor. Despite these facts, he still went on to state that the videos wouldn't stop.
And you thought the videos would stop, but they will never stop because, when you fight out of a principle, you got an infinite amount of venom.
And he would continue to call out Joe Rogan, who he had taken to calling Seth Rogen for copyright reasons of all things.
Seth Rogen? Picking a fight with you, Seth Rogen.
I'm like, what do you say fuck me for?
At this point, I think we should back up a bit, because this is not the first time Brian has been arrested. Last year, he was arrested in Poland before he was going to leave the country in his private jet. The details of this arrest seem pretty sparse, at least on the English-speaking side of the internet, but apparently Brian had 40 rounds of ammunition in his luggage. His defense was that it was to protect his family, but that doesn't make any sense unless Brian was planning to throw the bullets at an attacker. At the time, a lot of people viewed this as some kind of stunt by Brian to draw attention to himself again. I think that skepticism has carried over to Johnson's most recent arrest, which has led people to believe that it was also a publicity stunt. And there are some legitimate questions about the authenticity of this incident, in my opinion. Part 4. The Aftermath. In the days following his arrest, Brian generally kept doing the same sort of thing as before. He remained steadfast in his belief that a fight was going to happen, even if he had to use euphemisms to dance around exactly who he was going to fight.
Rogan versus Liver King. It's still happening.
I'm picking a fight. Who's it with? Seth Rogen. It's with Seth Rogen.
Eventually, though, it did seem like he began to grasp the gravity of the situation and realized that he was probably not going to be able to stay in Austin, much less have his fight with Joe.
Ready to go. We might be packing it up today. We might not. It was supposed to be 12 days. It kind of depends on conversations with lawyers and investigators and stuff like that.
So, he was forced to return home, though he wouldn't give up on the fight just yet. At this point, I would like to say that with a few exceptions, the videos Brian has posted since the arrest and return to his ranch have not been very interesting. They are repetitive, even by the standard of what we've seen so far. And while the pre-arrest videos were at least kind of manic and entertaining, these videos are pretty boring. Well, aside from that weird freestyle rap video, of course.
It's a rap battle. Chipper chattel, chittle chatter, chipper chatter, chittle chatter. Can't think, no time. King time, look at me rhyme.
Brian simply cycles through the same handful of talking points in basically every video. He's picking a fight.
You probably don't know who I am. My name is Liver King. I'm picking a fight.
Who is he picking a fight with? Seth Rogen, or Below Slogan as he began to call him.
Picking a fight with, don't know whose name is?
Below Slogan, plug in the name.
Why? Because of his family and principles that actually matter.
Why am I doing that? Family. I'm doing it because of family.
Periodically, he starts ranting about the movie and how it led to his family being received as less than they actually are.
They forgot to say that in the untold truth of the movie.
We've been through this a lot already. He did start to slightly change the message toward the end of June by referring to Joe as the bully, and began to spin this fight into a broader conversation against bullying in general.
Bully versus Liver King. Bully, plug in the name.
I am picking a fight. It's with the bully. Plug in whatever name you want. Your stepping stone to something much more important principle.
Bullying, I don't allow it. I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to do it.
And then you know what really sucks is to watch the bullying happen. There's something you could have done about it, but you didn't. Right now we can do something about it.
This angle changed slightly once more on July 2nd, when Brian announced that he was upping the donation amount to $10 million to charity.
$10 million is now what the challenge has been amped to.
He also tried to get members of his audience in on the campaign by asking them to make videos to get Joe's attention, and vaguely framed it as an anti-bullying thing.
Help me get the attention of this podcast host. You don't have to be bullied, and you don't have to watch it.
Weirdly though, Brian also added a couple of new stipulations to this deal. Namely, the podcast would either have to be aired live or recorded and aired by July 4th.
And I have to also be reassured that it's going to be a live podcast, and or it happens before July 4th, and the latest that it can air is the 4th of July.
Why July 4th? I don't really know. Why did Brian think he was in the position to make demands of a podcast that had, at best, ignored him up to this point? I don't know either, but I do have something of a theory. On July 4th, Brian uploaded a video where he was being arrested on his ranch, but it was clearly staged. I mean, one guy just had a hat and a jacket on that said police. Shortly afterward, Brian would upload another video where he explicitly stated that the video was fake. Why? It was a joke all along.
Just posted a video of a pretend charlatan arrest.
I find it hard to believe. For one thing, it just doesn't add up. Publicly having what appeared to be a mental breakdown where you challenged a podcaster to a fight, then traveled across the state to the city he lives in, which resulted in an arrest and legitimate criminal charges, seems to be a bit far to go for a joke. That's to say nothing of the longer-term ramifications like the restraining order, the ankle monitor, the loss of his guns.
They took all my guns away. All the guns are gone.
And the pending court case. No. What I think happened was Brian finally realized that the Joe Rogan invitation wasn't coming. So he had to do something, anything, to save face. His solution was to retcon everything into being a joke the whole time. And I mean that literally. I think the fake arrest was him trying to actually retcon reality in some way and change the narrative, if only in his own mind. But it's pretty ridiculous because part of Johnson's legal defense is also to have Joe Rogan show up in court and say that he's scared of Brian. If it were all a joke, I don't think he would be trying to have one last pissing contest, especially one that could actually land him in jail. Since this video was uploaded, Brian has been significantly less active on social media, and the posts he's uploaded have been less consequential. This all leads me to pose a final question to you. What really caused all of this? Part 5. The King in Methylene Blue. Alright, I'll admit that I was being a little bit cheeky with that last question, because it's really two questions rolled into one. The first is, why did Brian go after Joe Rogan? And the second is, what caused this seeming mental breakdown? While it's only speculation, I think the first question is easier to answer. Joe Rogan publicly bashed Brian a number of times on his show and even had his arch-nemesis, Derek, on to talk about him. Yet, he never extended an invitation to Brian to get his side of the story. Now, you might argue that this had something to do with honesty or integrity, but I'll remind you that this guy constantly has liars, fraudsters, criminals, and con men on his podcast, and that's only Donald Trump I'm talking about. Joe had Terrence fucking Howard come on to talk about math and physics twice. So, integrity and honesty isn't really some make-or-break issue for Rogan. I'm not saying that Joe is obligated to give Brian a platform, but it's a bit underhanded to use your platform to repeatedly talk shit about a guy without giving him the opportunity to potentially clear the air on said platform. The circumstances have obviously changed in light of recent events, but at the time, I could see why Brian might have believed that getting on Joe Rogan was the solution to his problems. When all other avenues of getting on the show failed to pan out, he probably saw challenging Joe's manhood and asking him for a fight as his last option. So that's the first question answered. Now is the second one. What caused the apparent spiral that led to the call-out? That answer is quite a bit more complicated. A lot of people have their theories blaming everything from drugs to brain-eating parasites that he got from eating raw meat. Personally, I don't think there is enough evidence to point to one particular catalyst. Rather, I think there was a confluence of multiple factors that led to the episode we saw in late June. The first and probably most common accusation is that Brian was/is taking drugs, with many people specifically citing meth. Brian has discussed his recreational use of various substances in the past. He has mentioned microdosing plant medicines.
I microdose different plant medicines.
He took mushrooms on camera in the Netflix documentary, and he's spoken about taking Special K, which he supposedly got from his high priest Joe Cohen.
Oh my God, from inner space to outer space is that gift. It was suggested to me by an angel. I tried it. It worked.
And so apparently an angel suggested that he take this gift, of which he deleted some kind of jelly. I do believe it's drugs.
Vitamin K does as well, if you want to know the whole...
And so it's vitamin K. Do you all know what vitamin K is?
On the other hand, Brian stated on more than one occasion, before, during, and after the arrest, that he wasn't taking anything.
I said, well, I wasn't on drugs then. I'm not on any drug right now.
Specifically, he said he stopped taking everything to gear up for the fight with Joe Rogan.
Before I came here, there was a fight to pick, so I stopped doing those. While I've been here, I stopped doing those. While I'm fighting, I won't do those.
You can believe him or not. Unfortunately for Brian, he's done a lot of damage to the public's faith in his ability to tell the truth. With that said, I do lean away from this answer, at least as the sole explanation for Brian's recent behavior. For one thing, we cannot discount the effect that the Netflix documentary had on Brian. Although Joe Rogan was the main target of his social media videos, the movie, as Johnson refers to it, also featured pretty heavily in his rants. And while Brian has shown a grudging respect for Rogan, if not a desire to form an alliance with him...
And the kind of good that real kings, alliances, what we can actually do, that's a dessert I'll double down on. Until united we are, good and true, real kings, alliances, we can build that.
He's shown nothing but animosity towards Joe Perlman and his boss, Sheldon, who he has continued to talk about with increasingly violent rhetoric long after the arrest.
I really want to burn. I really do want to burn him. A fake Jew. My name's Sheldon. And then Joe Snurlman.
In Brian's rants about the movie, he has described how it caused people to receive his family as less than what they really are. In particular, he repeatedly mentioned how they failed to talk about his queen's past as a dental surgeon or the thesis he wrote about the effects of dietary supplements.
You know what they forgot to put in the Untold Truth movie? That my queen, my wife, she's a dentist. For over a decade, a long time, she would do full mouth reconstructions 12 to 14 hours a day. A doctor of dental surgery. I, Liver King Brian Johnson, stupid enough to get a college degree, writes a thesis on the chemical compositions and biochemical processes of dietary supplements in the human animal.
It's also worth noting that prior to the Joe Rogan fiasco, Brian had not been posting much on social media, with one of the few exceptions being a short video talking about the Untold documentary.
We're a different family now than the family that made the movie. A rebranding, sure, an evolution, more accurate.
The Netflix documentary may not have been the primary impetus for Brian's behavior either, but he has mentioned it too much to ignore the role it played. With that in mind, there are two more points that bear mentioning as well, in my opinion, and I've seen few if any people bring them up. The first is the general mental and behavioral decline we've seen from Brian over the last year and a half or so. Late last year, he drew the attention of internet fitness commentators for a number of videos where he appeared to be experiencing some kind of mental health episode.
Joe Cohen from Self-Decode, my high priest who has helped me reconnect to lightning bolts, to full send, surrender, nothing but the truth, so help me. That's all it is, so help me.
The videos were so manic and disjointed that it led some people, like Greg Doucette, to question if Brian was experiencing schizoaffective disorders or some other mental illness.
Thought that it mattered. Endowed with the capacity that we probably did nothing to earn, aka your height. Insecure about a thing that you didn't earn to begin with. Insecure about a thing that is a paltry thing of flesh because my dick went to the left and I took Adderall.
How did he transition from his height to his dick veering to the left? But could it possibly, what Mike Israetel explains, a loss of fluid intelligence from using and abusing performance-enhancing drugs, namely steroids? Mike Israetel says that when you're on steroids, especially in high doses, that it has a marked decrease in your intelligence. As I'm watching this right now, he's not looking all that smart. He's got a change in personality, and perhaps this is schizoaffective disorder.
While the manic and erratic nature of Brian's recent content has rightfully garnered attention, I think people are missing out on a more concerning element that only becomes apparent when you watch a lot of these videos, and in particular, the longer ones. That is, the repetition. This is a point that is hard to get across without literally playing minutes of Brian's videos. So, I would suggest you go to his social media pages and watch a few of his videos in context to get an idea of what I'm talking about. If you watch practically any video where Brian talks for more than about a minute continuously, you'll notice that he has a hard time expressing his thoughts in an intelligible manner. Most of the time, he resorts to speaking in a word salad of various catchphrases that we're now familiar with. It's as if he's stuck in some kind of loop, unable to reach the verbal escape velocity necessary to finish what he's saying. Then there is the way Brian has latched onto certain words, phrases, and ideas. For example, in the wake of the arrest, he has started using the word charlatan compulsively, inserting it into sentences where it doesn't make any sense, as if it's just a synonym for dishonest or fake.
Even the Dobermans, they're like pretend sleeping, you know, charlatan. Sleeping they are.
Just posted a video of a pretend charlatan arrest.
There's something very disconcerting about this that goes beyond just not knowing what a word means. More concerningly, he's become fixated with the number 12 and started to create odd connections between it and other concepts. With the addition of adventure, evolve, and spirit, there are now 12 ancestral tenets where there were once 9.
And the spirit, demarcation points, the 12 ancestral tenets principle, stronger than time.
Brian also correlates the 12 ancestral tenets with the 12 demarcations on a clock face, with spirit taking the position of the number 12.
Maybe you call them like tenets around the clock. Boom. There's 12 of them. The last one is spirit. That's number 12. It sits at the top. Demarcation points around a clock even.
Time as a concept also features heavily in many of Johnson's rants. He refers to the 12 ancestral tenets that are on the king crown clock as the principles that are stronger than time, whatever that means.
Because you know what's stronger than time? It's like principles. Principles that matter. Stronger than time.
He also makes mention of closing the delta to perfect, which somehow leads to king time or God's time / divine time.
Man, like, what's the delta to perfect? And then, oh, that's perfect, right? So the number 4 is like, what's better than perfect? That's king time. King time.
And if you were paying attention earlier, you might remember that when Brian was about to be arrested, he asked the cops for 12 exact minutes.
So right now, is it 12, 2, or 0? So can I have 12 minutes to just finish my actual shit? We agreed on 12, correct?
12 minutes, correct.
There's 12 ancestral tenets, you know that?
I do.
What does this all mean? I have no fucking clue. What's clear to me, though, is that it seems like something happened to Brian in the last year or so that caused him to change quite dramatically. There might actually be an explanation for this change, and it's one I haven't seen brought up in many of the videos about Liver King. On September 24th, 2023, Brian injured himself while working out. He had an accident while using resistance bands that left his right eye permanently damaged and almost totally blind. But he also knocked himself out in the process, suffering a concussion that resulted in traumatic brain injury-like symptoms. He specifically cited word-finding difficulties and fractured sleep, as well as mentioning that his mood, memory, and determination needed some love. Does any of this ring a bell? In my opinion, this is highly significant. A brain injury could explain a lot of the strange behaviors we've seen from Brian recently. Concussions can affect one's memory, mood, personality, and cognitive abilities for years after the initial injury. Brian suffering a brain injury that has had longer-term effects on his personality and mental faculties would explain a lot. And this is to say nothing of the other tidbits of lore that Brian has dropped, such as his use of a BiPAP machine.
Use a BiPAP device, not even a CPAP. CPAP wasn't strong enough for the king.
Before his arrest, he mentioned that around the time of Thanksgiving last year, he was in dire straits, but his friend Ben Greenfield saved his life by teaching him about the coffee enemas.
Last Thanksgiving, I was dying, over-exaggerating, but a CT scan said something that was at dire straits, and Ben Greenfield helped me. He gave me this recipe, kind of changed my life. Thank you, Ben Greenfield.
I went through some of Brian's posts from around that time last year and couldn't find much about this health scare. It's part of a pattern where Brian has hinted at various ailments without disclosing much, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was dealing with any number of health problems that we've never heard about. When you put together all of these puzzle pieces and look at the bigger picture they form, well, it starts to seem like this downward spiral was more or less inevitable. The worrying thing is that I don't really see it getting any better from here. For now, I think Brian will probably settle down a bit. He's uploaded less frequently in recent weeks, and the posts have been fairly inconsequential. That said, Brian can't seem to go more than about 9 months to a year without some kind of controversy that gets people's attention. Whether it's a stunt or something real, he craves the spotlight. Years ago, Brian made the statement that before assuming the Liver King persona, he was rich and anonymous, and ever since, he's still rich, but no longer anonymous.
Prior to social media, I was rich and anonymous, and now I'm still rich, but I'm no longer anonymous.
At the time, he framed this as something of a sacrifice to help spread the message of ancestral living. Today, Brian's statement is still true, but it has taken on a different tone. Brian is no longer just not anonymous, he's on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Liver King has become a cautionary tale of the destructive nature of social media fame. Before adopting the persona and starting his various accounts, Brian was somebody who had it all. He was rich, successful, had a family, and the freedom to do whatever he wanted with his life. The only thing he didn't have was fame. He did eventually get that fame, but in a way that was nothing short of a genie's wish or monkey's paw deal. He became famous, but it came at the cost of being outed as a steroid user, which overshadowed his message about the 9 ancestral tenets. Ever since, he has been trying to chase that initial high of viral viewership, but nothing has worked as well. and you can see the toll it has taken on him. The man looks like he has aged 25 years in less than 3. It no longer seems to just be superficial changes either. Whether you like Brian or not, it's clear that whatever he's put his body through for years, if not decades, is manifesting itself in deeper, scarier ways. Ways that we'll only know about if Brian decides to share them, and even then it will be hard to sort out what's real from what isn't. As I said about Liver King a few years ago, Brian is an unreliable narrator, but it's gotten worse with time. His online persona and real-life personality appear to have fused together into some kind of amalgamation of the two. To paraphrase a corpse with blonde Chinese hair and the skin of a hot dog, he worked himself into a shoot. At the end of these documentaries, I like to try to come to some final conclusion or summary that puts a nice bow on everything. More and more often, though, I find myself saying that the future is uncertain. Few times has it ever been as true as it is here with Brian Johnson. His personal life seems very messy right now, which may be a reflection of some deeper inner turmoil. His method of dealing with his problems appears to be making unhinged social media posts, an issue that may be exacerbated by Brian having full control of his accounts since late last year, allowing him to post whatever he wants with no filter. A matter that in all likelihood won't help his case when it comes to his pending legal issues. To top it all off, his social media accounts are dwindling. People now watch him the same way they gawk at a car accident. And when you fall into that cycle as a content creator, it's virtually impossible to get out of. The way I see it, the Liver King arrest was not the culmination of a years-long public downfall. Rather, I think we will look back at this moment more like the beginning of Act 2 in the Liver King story. Everything is in position for something more serious to come, and it seems it's just a matter of time before it does. As always, I want to thank you for watching the video, as well as liking, commenting, and subscribing. Additionally, I'd like to thank those of you who are listening to the audio-only version. I'd also like to give a special thank you to my supporters on Patreon who help make these videos possible. Thank you, Squirt, Rusty Shackelford, Jackson, Fightback CBD, Mike Roballs, Bone CK, Mango Saver, Mad Max Burger, Gaius Nisha Patton, Scott Richmond, Mad Nexus, Random Candor, Fuzzy Yanus, Old Neon, Timothy Lee Peterson, Wet Cigarette, Firebrand, Quasi, Snepsts, Alex, and Neem.